Hello everybody, it's EzraTime again here. Welcome back to our reaction videos, and today we are going to be reacting to once again the game theory FNaF. This one is called The Origins of Evil, which is okay. We're still going with the FNaF lore, obviously. Despite the fact that the FNaF game hasn't been anything from the FNaF game, but maybe the books, I guess. But yeah, again, I guess we'll see what Matpat has to say. I don't exactly know where the lore is heading at this point. I mean, I just here just for the ride, honestly. So without further ado, let's start the video, shall we?
I've done it. I've solved FNaF, and the clue that brings it all together is this.
Don't you hate getting killed by obscure secondary characters?
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where today I'm just gonna get straight to the point. This episode was supposed to be our final timeline, but you know what? It's not quite there yet. I think we're gonna have it ready for next week. There's just a few wrinkles that we need to iron out about Elizabeth's death specifically, but otherwise, I feel really good about everything we've pieced together so far. That said, I wanted to put this episode up first regardless because it dives into a section of the timeline that's likely gonna be controversial, which is also a bad thing because it's the beginning of the timeline. Nothing like starting off on the wrong foot, you know? So in order to head that one off at the pass, let's just start talking about it now, shall we? Last episode, I brought up how the team and I have been tackling this whole timeline project. Basically that we've broken down everything into three key sections: the foundation of Freddy's, the Afton era, and post-Purple Guy. In that episode, we dug hard into the last chunk, trying to figure out the recent history with things like FNaF VR and Security Breach. But even trickier is the first chunk, the foundation of Freddy's. You see, at this point, we all have a general basic knowledge of the games, right? Kids die, animatronics get possessed, all that good stuff. But here, that foundational stuff right at the beginning, that's the murkiest because honestly, there's not a lot that's immediately clear that we can go off of. Sure, there's a couple of lines from Phone Guy, maybe a sentence or two from the novels, but otherwise, it seems to be about it. How did William Afton and Henry Emily start working together? Were they rivals? Why did Afton start killing in the first place? Was Fredbear's Family Diner truly the first location? These are questions that seem important for us to answer, and honestly, if you're looking at where the timeline of Five Nights at Freddy's really begins, it's with those sorts of questions. The only problem is that the answers just might not exist anywhere in the canon yet. Or so I initially thought, which brings us to today's episode. I suspect that there may be a way to answer some, if not all of those questions using a mix of evidence from the games, the books, and real-life lore. In the process, I think it'll help us get a better understanding of William Afton's motives, while also outlining a rough sequence of events that'll ultimately help place locations and other things when I tackle the full timeline of the series next week. And all of it hinges on one thing: a set of obscure secondary characters named the Mediocre Melodies. Orville Elephant, Ned Bear, Pig Patch, Happy Frog, and of course, Mr. Hippo.
Sometimes a story is just a story. You try to read into every little thing and find meaning in everything anyone says, you'll just drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, I know, Mr. Hippo, I get it. That has been leveled at me more times than I can count. But I think in this case, we actually didn't read into you enough. You see, when the Mediocres were first introduced in Pizzeria Simulator, we, as the community, largely dismissed them. And why wouldn't we? This is a game where you're pulling animatronics out of a dumpster. Trash and the gang are literally made of garbage. Why would we think that some random barnyard-themed characters would be worth our attention when there was already so much established lore inside of the thing? We beat the game, we solved the lore, we moved on. Then Ultimate Custom Night released, and there they were again. It was strange to see them fill so many slots, but I don't know, there was also Trash in the Gang, and Music Man! Other random pulls from the character deep cuts, so maybe it was just Scott trying to fill out the roster. But then something unexpected happened. Well, they were mostly treated as a joke. If you died to them, every once in a while they'd give voice to the most important character and mystery from the game, the one you shouldn't have killed, Cassidy.
We've only just begun. I will never let you leave. I will never let you rest.
It was a huge revelation, and the lines that they spoke ultimately helped us to determine that Custom Night was William Afton's endless torment at the hands of the spirits inside the Golden Freddy suit. But again, none of us ever stopped to consider why them? Why these characters? Why were they the ones that Cassidy was choosing to speak through? Why are they here? Well, after doing a lot of research for the grand overall timeline, now I think I know. The Mediocre Melodies were Henry's creation from a time before he and William started working together. When the two men man merged their ideas together to form one company, the Mediocres became temporary characters at Fredbear's Family Diner before eventually being retired and largely forgotten. Oh yeah! That is a lot of big swings that I'm making with some massive assumptions. So let's just rewind and take it one step at a time, shall we? First, how do we know that the Mediocre Melodies belong to Henry? Well, let's just look at their design. It's very simple. They're similar to the Endo 01 designs from the FNaF 1 animatronics, but even more rudimentary, with less flexible joints and less complex wiring. But the important point here is that for each one, the upper jaw and the lower jaw are entirely separate, operating using a very basic hinge towards the back of the head, or two metal bars that slide up and down along the side. And you see, that right there is what tells us they belong to Henry. Well, there are plenty of animatronics that fall into a nebulous zone of who designed them. There are a few pieces of tech that we can definitely trace back to their original creator. The Funtime animatronics, for instance, definitely came from Afton. Not only were they designed with the intent of luring and capturing children, something that just doesn't jive with Henry, but the blueprints outright have Afton Robotics written in the corner. Not much you can do to deny that one. Sound illusion discs? Another Afton creation, considering the backs of them are stamped with his company name as we see in the graphic novels. But the one I'm most interested in today is Lefty, the animatronic designed by Henry used to capture his daughter the puppet during FNaF 6. That was clearly not an Afton project. This was purely Henry's doing in secret. So, knowing that, did you happen to notice the two straight metal rods in the schematics with the jaw fully detached from the top of the head? It's an exact match for the design of Happy Frog. It's a Henry signature. But why does that matter? Well, the designs of the Mediocres also perfectly match up to the first generation of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. We know that the Wizards were the earliest form of our core 4 animatronics. These were the ones that had children stuffed inside of them and got possessed. They outright tell us this fact in Ultimate Custom Nights.
I was the first. I have seen everything.
But have you ever stopped to look at how the Wizards were constructed? They use the exact same techniques as the Mediocre Melodies. They have a full separation between the tops of their head and their jaws. Withered Freddy and Foxy both have the hinge opening in the back like we see with Pigpatch, and Withered Chica follows the Happy Frog and Lefty model with bars in the jaw to aid in opening and closing the mouth. Think this is just a coincidence? Look at Chica in other games. Chica in FNaF 1, a fundamentally different design. Funtime Chica, definitely not. Toy Chica, nope. The only other time we see this sort of fully separated head design for animatronics is with the FNaF 6 Rockstar animatronics. Ones that, again, we know were built by Henry as part of his plan to lure everyone back to his pizzeria trap. In short, the animatronic design seems to be giving us a timeline of events. The Mediocres and Wizards were built by Henry early in the timeline of the games. Eventually, Afton starts to influence the designs more and more until Henry comes back to design the robots that were used for his pizzeria trap. But again, I ask, why does any of this matter? Isn't this just a minor detail? Me looking for connections where they don't really matter? No. Knowing that the Wizards and the Mediocres share a design seems like it might help explain another part of the lore, Happiest Day. In FNaF 3's Happiest Day minigame, we walk past children wearing masks that match the coloring and rough shape of the Mediocres. Pink pig, green frog, purple hippo, orange elephant, blue... Okay, not all of them match. But here's the thing, I'm not the one pointing that detail out. This is actually coming from Scott Cawthon himself. In the Five Nights at Freddy's Ultimate Guide, the character description for each Mediocre Melody calls this out as something worth noting. Quote, it's unconfirmed, but a child in the FNaF 3 Happiest Day minigame appears to be wearing a Happy Frog mask, Orville mask, Mr. Hippo mask. Every single entry mentions this specific detail. Seems like an odd fan theory to call so much attention to. And remember, Happiest Day is an exact recreation of the FNaF 4 pizzeria. We enter at the stage where Crying Child's bitten, we pass 3 tables, there's a bit of a gap, and then the final birthday table for the cake that's gonna set Crying Child's soul free. It seems to suggest that at some point the Mediocre Melodies existed in one version of the restaurant right alongside Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. But how could all that be? Well, it's easier than you might think. In the story The Puppet Carver, we read about the Pizza Playground, a restaurant that seems to predate or be a competitor to Freddy's. And in it, we see that the franchise uses very rudimentary animatronics that break down a lot. There's a pig with a banjo, an off-brand bear named Baron Von Bear, and an unknown bird animatronic. It's the Mediocre Melodies, guys. Pigpatch, Ned Bear, and hold on, there's no bird in the Mediocre Melodies. Unless, of course, we're talking about Chica. What this story seems to heavily suggest is that Chica started at a different pizza franchise and eventually crossed over into Freddy's, becoming popular enough to eventually join the Core 4. Also working at that pizza playground is a talented creator named Porter, someone who seems to have the ability to make wood-based computer-based animatronics come to life. In short, it's the book's stand-in for Henry. Henry may not be the most technologically advanced creator out there, but whatever he creates contains this certain X factor about it, a spark of life. It's how he's able to create endoskeletons out of nothing but wood. No power, no nothing, just wood and a childlike imagination. This, I think, starts to give us an important piece in the puzzle. Afton was the business guy, a tech bro who was smart and could build machines able to mimic voices and transform and launch giant claws out of their stomachs for no apparent reason. But it was Henry who had the pure love of his craft, that intangible thing that just couldn't be replicated, and it drove Afton crazy. In the Silver Eyes novel, we read a bit about Afton's old journals, that they were, quote, full of raving paranoia, passages about Henry that ranged from wild jealousy to near worship, which now gets us moving towards a motive. You see, one thing that I kept getting stuck on in the building of a timeline was the question of why. Why does Afton kill? And out of everyone, why does he kill Henry's daughter, Charlie, specifically? She is one of, if not the first victim of the entire series. So why does Afton do it? Just because he's evil? Just because he's drunk from the bar at Junior's? No. I think Afton both loved and hated his business partner. He admired him and his magic, but also despised him for his success. This contradiction starts to point us to Afton's motive for murder. It also finally helps give us a framework for the early parts of their story. Loyal theorists, let me now point us to the most obvious place that we should have been looking for lore this entire time, the history of the Chuck E. Cheese franchise. Because in a game all about animatronic pizza restaurants, why would we not look to see what creative inspiration Scott might have gotten from the real-life franchise that started it all? I am so dumb. It took me researching an episode over on food theory to finally realize that I should have at least considered this at some point during the last 7 years of solving FNaF. Major head test moment. Anyway, I did exactly that, and what I learned was enlightening, to say the least. You see, what we now know of as Chuck E. Cheese actually started as the product of a feud between two rival animatronic pizza restaurants, Pizza Time Theater and Showbiz Pizza Place. Pizza Time was founded by a smart businessman who wanted to recreate Disneyland's Country Bear Jamboree. In the end, their onstage show wound up soulless and had no solid theme. Showbiz Pizza, meanwhile, had a creator who built better robotic attractions that were full of life. They also had a solid theme where everyone had southern accents and a lot of charm. I mean, just watch the clips and the difference is immediately clear.
Like, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you get it?
See, we're all up here on the stage, and we can all turn, go around a big circle together. See, like this, our feet aren't screwed to the floor or bolted down. We can move. We got more moves than a can of worms. And then that old 1-2 Billy Bob can come up there and stick his old ugly mug in your face.
To me, the battle between these two real-life pizza places, these two men, sounds a lot like the battle between William and Henry. A smart businessman who wanted to riff off Disney's Bear Show versus a talented artist that was building animatronics with actual life and good southern accents.
Based on true story, guys.
I was just waiting for you to drop your guard.
Even small details of the real-life story map nicely onto the games, like the fact that these pizza places had small cabaret stages off to the side for extra acts to get added later. Just like how Foxy stands alone in Pirate Cove, a separate act that we see was the last one added to the core group of 4. In real life, Pizza Time Theater, the one I most associate with William Afton, went heavily into debt and was forced to merge with Showbiz Pizza. That meant that, at least for a while, all the animatronics existed under one roof, but because the characters from Pizza Time were stronger for branding, specifically Chuck E. Cheese, that's the ones that they ultimately moved forward with. I suspect that something similar happened in the games. William's bear-themed restaurant went heavily in debt. He gets saved by his rival Henry, and the two merge their restaurants together to create Fazbear Entertainment. Chica, a mediocre melody, officially joins Fredbear's cast of friends, and the rest are slowly phased out to obscurity. And William, angry and bitter, never truly lives down the humiliation of his failure, prompting him to lash out in a drunken rage against Charlie one night behind the pizzeria. This feels right to me, to set up William as more than just an evil purple guy. This flow of events actually gives him a reason to want to kill, a motive. It also aligns with a lot of the interviews that Steel Wool Studios has been doing recently. J-Top, creative director at Steel Wool, recently acknowledged how important it is for your horror villain to be an actual, fully fleshed out, tragic character.
Try not to set out to make a cool looking villain, you know? Go make a monster that have a reason for it. Look at like anthology horror. Here's somebody doing something really, really bad. Like they murdered someone. Something happens, often ironically, that then comes back to bite them. A creature is created, a situation is created, and then they're judged and they get their just desserts. Every big, horror icon essentially fits that structure in a way. Why is Freddy Krueger popular? Well, it's a revenge story, isn't it? Miss Voorhees, it's a revenge story. These aren't just like these supernatural forces that came out of nowhere to just hurt people and punish people. There were results of other wrongdoing.
William Afton, if I'm right, follows this exact pattern. His jealousy over Henry's skill causes him to lash out, which in turn dominoes to him building the very robots that'll eventually take Elizabeth and his crying child son away from him. The other thing that this mediocre melody timing issue may help explain is Cassidy's death. In the Fazbear Frights books, there's Andrew, who's basically the book stand-in for Cassidy. I know we're always supposed to take things in the books with a grain of salt, but Andrew here is an angry spirit that keeps William's soul tethered to a hellish purgatory so it can be punished again and again and again. He's also known to have had his body stuffed inside of Golden Freddy, so really the connections between the two aren't subtle. But Andrew has two unusual details about him. First, he wears an alligator mask. Second, and even more strangely, it's repeatedly made clear that his soul is attached not to an animatronic or an endoskeleton or anything like that, but to a battery pack of all things. Now that is unusual. He's stuffed into Golden Freddy, but his soul is in a battery pack. Where in this franchise do we see animatronics using battery packs, let alone off-branded animals using battery packs? Oh, wait, it's the Mediocre Melodies. Could they possibly have been around during the Missing Children's incident? Yes. Given what we already talked about with the Generation 1 Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica matching the designs of the Mediocre Melodies, it's certainly possible. We also see that the Golden Freddy suit has the same Henry style of design. In both the Fazbear Frights illustrations, as well as FNAF 4's minigames, we see that Golden Freddy has the separated jaw controlled by two straight bars, just like Lefty and just like Happy Frog. And last but certainly not least, we come all the way back around to the point that I started this whole episode with. Cassidy speaks through them, of all characters. Not through Golden Freddy, not through Fredbear, through the Mediocre Melodies, the animatronics with a battery pack. Just thought it was an interesting series of connections. So anyway, those were some stray observations that I've been kicking around about the Mediocres. What do you think? Do they have greater lore importance to the story than we initially thought, or are they just meant to be a joke? Am I just falling victim to everything that Mr. Hippo warned me against? Let me know down in the comments below now, because this is your last chance for them to affect the final FNAF timeline for 2022. Our interpretation of all the events in the series up to now. That episode will be coming in the next week or two. I swear, I am not putting it off anymore. We are gonna plow through this thing to the very end. We have gotta finish it. Gotta finish it, man.
Okay.
Gotta finish it. You're so close. Just do it. So make sure you subscribe to know when that one is uploaded, and in the meantime, remember, stay hydrated. I appreciate that today's theory might be a lot to swallow. Fortunately, you can wash it down with help from today's sponsor, Era.
Sponsor. So, yeah, that was an interesting theory, get to know the backstory of this animatronic. And yeah, it's definitely interesting that now Matpat brought the Mediocre Melodies. I love they call them Mediocre Melodies. It's been a while since I seen this character, right? They just appear in FNAF 6 and Ultimate Custom Night, but I feel like it's FNAF, so I think it makes sense that every single character has his own purpose eventually, right? At first you don't know that, but eventually they might have, right? Maybe they're going to appear more again in the future games, who knows? But the thing with the Chuck E. Cheese and then the Showbiz Pizza, that was interesting though, because Matpat does say that he should like bring this connection like 7 years ago, because I think people built this connection with FNAF with Chuck E. Cheese, right? But I don't think we built any connection with the two of them being rival and stuff like that. But yeah, that would be insane though if there was actually a real life inspiration for Scott Cawthon to make up the FNAF lore about Henry and William, right? Making the two of them like Chuck E. Cheese or like Pizza Time Theaters and then Showbiz Pizza Place before they merged to become Chuck E. Cheese. And I think Chuck E. Cheese was no longer with us, right? I think they closed down, if I'm not mistaken. Which is sad, but whatever, I guess. I mean, I don't eat at Chuck E. Cheese, to be honest, so I guess. But yeah, that was interesting if this was actually the case, because there is some similarities, and that is insane to me that it was actually based on a true story. Scott Cawthon actually see this and then try to use it as an inspiration. Like, that was like, wow, okay. That was pretty insane if that was actually the case. Seems like it, hopefully. And as for the Mediocre Melodies, I think maybe at some capacity they're going to appear in the book. I don't think it's going to be in the game. Maybe it's going to be in the book, because I remember in the next DLC, Matpat does make a theory that the Ruin DLC for Security Breach is gonna be like the last of the Afton era maybe, and then we're gonna move on post Afton era, post Purple Guy. Like, man, Purple Guy. Like, we haven't heard that name for such a long time. Remember back in the day, guys, when we were making theories about, like, you know, who is Purple Guy, Purple Guy, Purple Guy. You know, like, now, yeah, William Afton, and then we heard Purple Guy again. It's just weird, and then just like took him back. At least for me, just having nostalgia back in the day, we just keep calling Afton Purple Guy, and then to figure out who he actually was. But now we're actually moving forward past that, which is amazing. And I'm really curious to see what Scott has to say, I guess, or at least Stillwell Studio has to say about the FNAF lore, because, like, you know, I think moving forward, if Ruin is indeed the last part of the Afton era, then I'm interested to see what's gonna be the next for the FNAF lore. You know, like something new maybe. Because obviously they can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. I just hope that for the future of FNAF, I hope that the game are scary. You know, I'm fine if you try to do like free roaming and stuff like that, but I hope there is like a scary moment there, because I feel like now it got influenced by like, oh, like there's a bunch of kids playing the game, so like it can't be scary anymore or something like that, right? And that's definitely something that I miss from FNAF. You know, I miss when the FNAF game, you know, just being scary. You know, I feel like we already lost that with Security Breach, you know. So hopefully in the future game, FNAF can be at least scary enough, you know, at least can be suspenseful again at some point. I know that we've been playing this for such a long time, but I feel like they could figure out a new way to make the FNAF game look scary, in my opinion. Like, you know, create a good atmosphere and suspense on the game. I feel like you could do that, you know, and then obviously we'll see what's gonna be the new storyline. But yeah, as for the mediocre, I think maybe they're gonna appear in the future books, you know. Also, the connection with FNAF 3 was pretty insane. I don't exactly expecting Matpat to just like go back to FNAF 3. You know, if anything, I'm just expecting, and again, another FNAF 4 connection, which he kind of did bring that. But FNAF 3, where the mass of the kids actually resembles the mediocre melodies, you know, and the fact that Scott actually said that it's unconfirmed, guys. But in FNAF 3, the kids are actually wearing like this, like, yeah. I mean, you're basically saying that, yeah, hey guys, pay attention to that. You know, look back to FNAF 3. They are wearing the mask for the mediocre melodies, you know, well, 4 of them at least. But that was saying something, right? That was insane to me, that how far the story has gone, you know. And then we have an answer for the old game, basically. And for the origin storyline, I mean, it's just a theory, right? But hey, it makes sense in my opinion. We'll see what's gonna happen. But yeah, that's my thoughts, guys. And again, I'm gonna leave a question to you guys. You know, what do you guys think about this theory right here? You know, about the origin. You know, about the mediocre melodies. Do you guys think that there are actually way more important than they look like? You know, you guys can leave that opinions in the comment section below. And if you guys want to watch the original video, then I will leave a link in the description below. As always, make sure you guys check the Game Theory channel. I will leave the link in the description below. Subscribe to Matpat and show some support, obviously. I guess we can stay tuned for the FNAF final timeline, you know, which I'm pretty sure that until they retcon it again, maybe in the future games, like who knows. But either way, guys, that's it for today's video, guys. And if you enjoyed, then leave a like, comment, subscribe, share the videos, usual stuff. You guys can become a membership for this channel if you want to support me even further. Again, if you want to, of course. And stay tuned for more videos in the future, guys. And again, I really hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will see you guys in the next one then. Bye.